Hey guys, I want to welcome you to Millionaire Brand Creation. I am super excited to have a good friend of mine. Blake St. John is someone in the luxury space that you probably have heard of. He's done a lot of great things in Scottsdale specifically. And he comes from Glasgow, Scotland, someone that's been a professional golfer, merged into the luxury space. And I wanted to pick his brain today on how someone breaks into it, and more importantly, how someone stays in it and stays successful. So without further ado, Blake, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and what brought you out here.
As you said, grew up Glasgow, Scotland. Was a solid C student. Didn't really study that hard or feel an interest in passing exams and stuff as a kid. And I was always a sports kid. I always enjoyed playing soccer, rugby, and then in my later teen years took up golf. And I saw that as an avenue out of Scotland. Didn't enjoy the weather, didn't enjoy a lot of what the culture has back there. It's kind of a blue collar country where everyone just works Monday through Friday, drinks on the weekend, hangs out, and back to the beginning again. And I kind of wanted more for my life. And that was when kids were leaving the country to go on scholarships to the States. Followed Martin Laird, who I grew up with back in Scotland at our club. And he went to Colorado State and came back one summer and said how awesome it was. So I practiced hard and realized that golf was my ticket out of the country to greener pastures, and went to school in '04 to St. John's, ironically, in New York. Found that to be too much like Scotland as far as weather. In '05, transferred to Oklahoma, where I spent 7 years going through college, playing a little bit of golf, and then eventually in 2011 turned pro and moved out to Arizona.
You became so you played. Did you play college golf then with Oklahoma?
Correct. Actually, it was actually a small Christian school, Oklahoma Christian. They were the number one team in the country. And when I transferred from D1 school, I didn't realize at the time when I left halfway through that you get a 1 year suspension. So that left me not very many options as far as school. So I had to go into an NAIA school, and Oklahoma Christian University were the number one team in the country. And I wrote that coach a letter and he recruited me to go there. So it all worked out in the end.
You became pro, moved to Arizona. Tell us a bit about that experience. I mean, that must have been surreal. I mean, you probably thought you were the next Tiger Woods or something, right?
I mean, I was just looking to at that point. Oklahoma is a great place. It's family roots and that type of lifestyle. But I knew that I had to either go to Florida or Arizona, where most professional golfers live and exist, because it's the best place to practice 12 months a year. And I spoke to friends in Florida, spoke to friends in Arizona, and realized Arizona was for me with none of the weather conditions that they have out in Florida. So I came out here, and I'd already been traveling a bunch with the school and seen a lot of the country, been to a lot of different states. So it was just it felt like another day, just get to Arizona, and golf was what made life normal. So you just woke up every day, played golf, and that felt like that's what I should be doing.
How did you play? I mean, did you place? Did you do well? What was the transition where you're like, this isn't for me. I'm not going to be the next Bubba Watson, but I'm going to go into real estate.
So golf, as most people know, is not cheap. It's a pretty expensive sport. It's an expensive venture. Just to enter some of the mini tour events can be as high as $2,000 between living expenses, entry fees, and stuff like that. And at the time when I came out of college, there was no quick path to the PGA Tour. You had to earn your right, go through the ranks, go through the kind of minor leagues, as the baseball term, and work your way to the PGA Tour. Unfortunately, I got a couple of back injuries. I blew my ankle out 6 months after graduation, and it just was multiple injuries and then just a bit of a slog, to be honest. And at 30 years old, my second back injury right before tour school hit me. I said, all right, enough's enough. I'm either going to be paralyzed or crippled, because the pain was getting pretty bad, or I find another passion. And I always had a passion for real estate. My mother was in real estate back in Scotland, slightly different setup, but homes, architecture, and that type of stuff were always a pretty cool passion. And then, as most people know, golf courses are pretty much surrounded by high-end real estate. So there was the kind of immediate connection. And during college, when a golf round should take 4 hours, typically takes six. So there's a lot of spending time on tee boxes, staring at your surroundings. So you start to accidentally go, oh, look at that beautiful home, look at this big yard. And you actually are absorbing a lot of information about high-end real estate without knowing it, to be honest.
What was your highest finish in the pros?
So I currently still have a handicap +3, which is better than scratch. I don't play that often. I probably get 35 rounds in a year, still enjoy playing with clients, playing with friends. But my new passion is real estate. It truly is. So golf, I took 2 years off mainly to recover from a fitness standpoint and an injury standpoint, and got back into it. But the same passion was never really there to compete. I found my competitive edge more in real estate to do deals and win for them more than anything. That was kind of my new thing.
So you use golf, I would assume, as kind of your resume builder, and you could talk to people and interact with high net worth people on the golf course. And they were probably so impressed with your play. They thought this guy must be a killer realtor if he's such a killer golf player, right?
So that is kind of an interesting bit to that there, because there is a transition where I was told by a good fellow friend, mentor, I call my American dad from Oklahoma. His son was actually in my golf team in college, and our friendship kind of flourished over the years just as a father figure. And he gave me wise words that, hey, you're going to have to convince the world you're no longer a golfer, but you will be able to circle back to it and use it as a skill. So that was very true words. And I used it as a launch pad, but I also had to learn basics of real estate. And ironically, it all came full circle. I met another luxury real estate agent at Pinnacle Peak Country Club while doing a kind of Beat the Pro for a charity company. He ended up taking me under his wing for my first 3 years. I got my license, joined Sotheby's, which, as most people know, is a pretty top-end luxury company across the world. I learned some good stuff. I was thrown into the deep end. Our first listing presentation together was for $6 million.
Who was your mentor?
Alan McDonald, also a fellow Scottish guy from Glasgow and ex-professional and collegiate player. So our bond, our friendship was pretty natural. And then after about 3 years with him, I realized, hey, this is something I can do by myself. I was fortunate enough that Oklahoma's a small place. And there's a lot of high net worth people with oil, gas, and a few other industries out there. And I was lucky enough that we got to play at some of the top end clubs, and I met these people, and turns out several of them had homes here in the Scottsdale area. And then that was it. I just became the kind of contact for a few of the Oklahoma people. And before I knew it, I was selling $3 million homes to some clients that wanted a second and a third home. So
that was your transition.
Kickstarted it. It really was. Alan introduced me to DC Ranch, where I was able to sit some high, very nice properties. So I grinded it out in the early days. I wanted to understand true value of a home, throwing straight into DC Ranch mainly. And I'd learned the ins and outs of that community, and it's a good community to understand luxury real estate and what value really is. So then when I branched off, I was fortunate enough to have a few good clients right out the gate, and did some good business in my first 6 months to fund the whole venture and keep going.
Obviously, you run a team now, and obviously a lot of real estate agents and real estate entrepreneurs are listening to this. What are some of your recommendations? I know a lot of people want to jump into luxury. A lot of people want to have your success. You got to do it all over again, or kind of have a roadmap for these individuals. What are some things that you would recommend that they do?
It goes back to kind of your roots, when your parents always tell you, you become who you hang out with. So I was unknowingly hanging out with guys at country clubs, CEOs of big top businesses, and just playing golf with them. And then that did transition. So I was fortunate enough and a little bit lucky that that was my sphere. But then I kept forcing it. So I would try and do open houses in the locations that I wanted to sell real estate, and meeting those type of buyers and those types of clients. And that was a really simple way. And there was a period of time where I did 47 open houses in a row in the middle of July and August in my second year, because I wanted to see and try and capture as many of those buyers in that off season that probably were going to walk in the front door without an agent. And it did pay off. So you do have to put in the hard work. And I think once you build your sphere, it can feed itself.
Yeah. And now, especially with higher interest rates, obviously a lot of agents are scratching their heads going, hey, how do I keep the lights on? In this type of high interest rate environment, when I would assume a lot of the luxury buyers I know on my end, especially in PV, above 3 million, 70 to 80% of them are now paying cash because of the high interest rates. But those entry luxury points, anywhere from, let's say, 1 million to 3.5, you see a lot of people getting loans, et cetera. How do you recommend that those tweeners, those agents that may be on your team or on my team, obviously open house is a great dynamic. What do they do in times like this? What are some of the pointers that you're giving your team? You're like, this is what you guys should be doing at these times.
It really is. It comes down to how many hands you shake in a year. So if you try and break it down, say, okay, I want to try and have this many deals. If you do 12 deals in the luxury sector, one a month, you're probably going to have a decent little career, make a decent paycheck at the end of it. A lot of people get caught up in the minutiae of short-term goals. I think luxury real estate is sit down at the end of the year and look at what came together, how many deals did I do, what was the price point, days on market for listings, and then kind of gather the information that way. I do tell my guys, look, start with the people you know, try and nurture those relationships, and shake as many quality hands as you can. And the easiest way truly is still open houses. It really is, because those are the active buyers coming in, and then take up certain hobbies. Like, I know you and I both have a passion for similar interests, cars and watches, and we go to these events and you try and shake as many hands as you can. Find common ground. You're not going to find it with everybody. Just golf is obviously an extremely easy one for me, so that does break down the barriers. I do have a skill that, and I know my dad told me as a young kid, you'll have a skill set that isn't purchasable. There's guys who have phenomenal business, are worth millions, not even billions these days, but they can't buy a golf game. So they'll always admire you and want to be around it. The hard work for a game of golf is actually paying off in real estate, believe it or not.
Well, it's brilliant because unknowingly or knowingly, that high end of sport really cultivates high end buyers and sellers. You know, it's funny. A buddy of mine once told me, he says, "Hey, why don't you play more golf?" I said, "I'm a 33 handicap." I said, "If I play golf, people think I'm as bad at golf as I am at real estate." And I said, "I don't like that. So I only play with guys that know me well."
There is a little theory to that. And if you are good at skill set, you can. It's hard to command a room with high net worth individuals. They can be intimidating people. They can be in charge of tens, hundreds of thousands of people, depends how big their company is. But when they come into what I call my office, which is the golf course or the bar afterwards, I can speak about something, and I've already kind of got the respect from something that's totally irrelevant to what we're talking about, which is real estate. But there is a respect value there, which does pay off.
I think you bring up a really important point, because I think people listening in, they have skills that they don't know are actually skills. And instead of trying to be a master of all, you should be a master of one or two and focus your energies on where people believe you to be one of the best. And luckily, one of your best talents is on the golf course. And I think that has definitely had to have cultivated a lot of your business. Is that true?
I mean, I joined Pinnacle Peak Country Club, and this is quite funny. I've told this story a few times. The time I was renting an apartment in Greyhawk for $850 a month, back when rent was pretty good. I joined the country club, and my bill there was $1,200 a month. So I did take a chance on myself when I didn't have a lot of money, because I knew I had instant access to 350 members of high net worth, or way more than me. I was by far the poorest guy at the country club, but I took a chance on my skills, knowing that could cultivate better relationships, and they're genuine. I didn't just go there to try and just sell real estate. I knew that'd be a byproduct, having these friends that I was already comfortable around, because I was comfortable in that atmosphere, and it does. And I've since moved into Pinnacle Peak Country Club and now live here, which is quite ironic that the whole thing started on the fourth tee box, meeting Alan McDonald 8 years ago. I now live, work, and kind of play golf here.
Now, when you look back on how old are you now, Blake?
Just turned 39.
So when you look back on your working years and you look back at some of the pivotal moments in your life, what are some of the moments that were like, whoa, this really changed the trajectory of my life? And what were some of the lessons that you learned in those moments?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, you relate everything back to golf. It's just what I know best. Like opportunities, there's a million ways to play golf. There's a million ways to hit a shot. It's which one are you going to choose? You're going to hit it high, you're going to hit it low, risk reward. And I relate that to, when do you take risk? When do you buy a home? Does this feel comfortable? What is your risk tolerance? And will always be how I see things. My risk on the golf course is, my threshold for it's a lot higher. I'll take on shots that are pretty ridiculous. But when it comes to my finances and real estate, I'm a little more calculated. I'll vet stuff out a lot more before taking a chance on it. And again, back to our passions of cars and watches, I will never put myself in a position to live month to month to enjoy those passions. Very thought out before pulling the trigger.
I think that's an important lesson for people to understand too, because everyone wants all the niceties, but you have to make the smart moves before you can easily afford the niceties. And even then, it has to be calculated and thought out and penciled out 100 million times. And so many people in our industry are fly by night, right? They get wealthy, they get a few big commissions, and then they go dark. And there's no continuity. There's really no business sense. It's almost a sense of, I'm trading time for money, and I hope and I pray I'm going to sell a $5 or $10 million house. And it's ironic because a lot of people ask me, they're like, you don't really sell a lot of houses. I said, well, I still drive a Ferrari and have a bunch of Rolexes and have a lot of houses. I said, so what I always say is stop trading your time for money and start taking your money and trading it back for time. And the only way you can do that is leverage it through the acquisition of real estate, and obviously have people start paying you. And that changed the trajectory of my life. And I think that's kind of how you and I connected, is that we have a lot of similar passions. If you could touch upon some of the investments that you made that were really intelligent earlier on, maybe in your late 20s or your 30s? What are some recommendations that you recommend to these entrepreneurs, either A, looking to hit the reset button, or B, looking to really take their income or their, assets to the next level?
I mean, I'll be honest. I got into real estate. I'm 39 now, and I was 30 years old when I got my license, and pretty much flat broke. I was at best breaking even in golf because it's so expensive. You spend 100 and make 100. So I was living on the thin line, and I got into it. I realized a number one goal was I needed to put my head on a pillow that I owned. I wanted to get out of the rental world. I'd done it my entire 20s. I didn't enjoy it. I wanted to own some real estate and then buy smartly to leverage it and build up, go from house 1, 2, 3, and then get to the big house. Obviously, timing the last 5 years has been pretty crazy, but I bought my first 3-bed, 2-bath home with a pool. I knew that, and 85255 was kind of the entry level holy grail that appealed to the masses. So I sold that 2.5 years later for 580 after just remodeling the backyard and nothing else. So it was a really nice gain on that house, and bought here in the country club. And then since then, this house, bought it for 856, and it skyrocketed well over 2 million in the last couple of years. So did I buy well? Yeah, I did, but the market was pretty crazy, and I will say there's a big chunk of luck there. Refied the house, pulled some money out, and sent that money out to work as well. So it's about using your money correctly, and then realizing what's an asset and what you can actually make money from. So I actually ended up with my car that I currently have, that, buying a Porsche from a client who was desperate to get rid of it, who sold it for 50% of its value. And I just kept trading up. And that was how I got to the car I'm currently at. So I'm still actually positive on the current car I have, which most people think a car is a huge burden. And right now, I actually think I'm still up if I wanted to sell it tomorrow.
It's kind of the game, right? You trade up to it, you trade into it. Do you regret selling your first house? Do you wish you would have kept it?
So the funny thing is, I do a little bit, but I was probably 6 weeks away from closing a few deals and having enough down payment to buy the house in the country club. And I do kick myself a little bit because the investor I sold to, a young kid who had $30 million money to go out and buy multiple VRBOs. Our relationship flourished from that purchase. I ended up doing 6 or 7 deals with him. So I made a decent amount of money having a relationship with him, but he also rented my old house out for $4,000 a month when my mortgage payment was only $1,450. So could have, should have, would have. That's probably the only little blip on my 8 years of could I have kept onto that? Yeah, because it's a cool house.
Now, when you said I pulled money out and put it to work, where did you put it to work and why?
So similar to yourself, start putting into development. I think, as we've seen, there's a lot of cash out there right now. The kind of uber wealthy are spending tenfold. They're buying 10, 12, $15 million houses here in the Valley. So I realized the future I want to be involved in. I love residential resale. I love meeting clients and doing all that, but a true passion really is architecture, design, and development of property like yourself. So I've invested in that sector of the market for now, for the next couple of years.
So you're a JV with a contractor and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, just a couple of business partners, and we just invested in hoping the market holds a little bit and we can a big one. But it's money, that type of investment. I've not banked on needing it. It's set it and forget it type stuff and let it roll, and it's for later in life. I still work really hard to bring in the money to cover the bills and everything else I want to do on a day-to-day basis. This is more the end game plan.
I would assume because of your success, a lot of younger agents or people getting into the industry like call you up or text you or DM you or whatever. And let's say they're 18 or 21, right? And they're just starting out. Would you recommend they become a realtor? Or would you recommend they do something else? And if so, what do they really need to do to get started? Do they need to join a team? Do they need to start in high end, low end, mid end? What would be your recipe, so to speak, for their success?
I got to go back to you become who you're around. So it's a case of try and be unique. I'm very fortunate. I'm Scottish, 6'2", blonde. I kind of naturally stick out right out the gate with the accent, so people remember me. I've got to do a better job of remembering a lot of clients who walk in open houses. So it is trickier, but if you are unique selling proposition, people will want to work with you. But it's more than just that. You need to know what you're talking about. And like I said, I try to master, and I'm constantly trying to keep up with it, is the true value of property to get clients the best deal, get them the best home that fits them. So I really studied that part of the job more than anything, because that's truly what matters, is getting the client the right product. To tell an 18-year-old to get into luxury, it's tricky. But if they are a unique person with a unique, maybe family, friends, come from a cool story, already surrounded by wealth, might be easier. But I have known people in that exact situation who are complete flops, who have tried, and even though they're surrounded by money, don't have the skill set or the people skills to grow into that and create a business. So I do feel extremely lucky that I do believe that my golf background has helped tremendously, and I'll always be thankful for that. Passion that I had for something completely different has helped this career.
About regret, when you look back on your 39 years, what are some of your biggest regrets and why?
I try not to live with any regret, to be honest. I always ask people that I've asked people that question before, and I say, "Are you happy today?" If someone says yes, then I always say, "Well, it doesn't matter what you did yesterday, because if you're happy in the moment, everything you've done to this moment has made you happy." So try not worry about the ups and downs. And I think you have to fail. I went through some struggles, personal struggles playing golf. Golf is an extremely lonely sport, but it also built my character I am today. I was self-disciplined. It was 7 days a week, travel by myself, got up by myself. You have to be very flexible. One minute you're teeing off at 7 a.m. on a Thursday, and then you're not teeing off till 2 o'clock on a Saturday. So you've always got to be ready. You also got to have off the course preparation, mentally reset, keep your body healthy, and just always be alert 7 days a week. You never know when something's going to come at you and when you actually have to work. Because, clients will call you at 11 o'clock on a Friday night.
Boy, ain't that the truth. What's your why? What makes you get up, Blake? What makes you excited? Obviously, it can't be the money. There has to be some deeper purpose for you.
Yeah, it's actually, strangely, money's never been a driving force for me. I always see money as a byproduct of hard work. It just is there. You work hard and do the right things by people, it will appear. So it's a good question. Honestly, it's more passion. Wake up, I just truly enjoy it. I truly enjoyed playing golf, and came to terms. It was at 29 years old, 30 years old, it was a tough acceptance of this is the end. It's not going to be for me. And then stepped into a realm that I really, truly enjoy. And it's those moments when you give the keys over and you see the smile on the faces. And sometimes it can be the smallest deal. I remember doing a deal way out in East Mesa, which is not my wheelhouse, for $209,000. And the appreciation from this young couple was insane. And I've done deals for over $3 million for a client in Oklahoma that never even saw the house. And it doesn't actually fulfill you as much. Those little deals can be more fulfilling.
What drives you? Helping others, educating others? What's the in you that you're like, this propels me every single day to keep driving? Because obviously it's a hard business.
It is. And it's, I think a lot of it's my upbringing from my father, especially. He was a self-made businessman from the age of 19. He owned his own hair salon, nightclubs, bars, restaurants, and then lost it all when I was 2 years old and had to start all over again with a wife and 3 kids under the age of 4, and then created his own commercial lighting company. Pretty big success to this day back in Scotland that my older brother now runs. So I was kind of instilled from my father, just never give up. But it was naturally already in me to just want to wake up. And I'm at the point now, and you mentioned about the teams. So I wanted to give back. I'm not saying I'm right. I don't know what the right answer is on anything. I just give what I think is the best option. And I try and I give the guys on my team my advice. Here's how I got here. Here's how I naturally think. And so far, after 8 years, it feels like it's working. And I just keep staying true to that. I'm not out there trying to do 500 deals a year. I realize that luxury real estate is quality over quantity. So it's about taking care of those around you. And you'll end up currently right now, I'm doing a deal for a client's mother. She's moving down from Seattle. And that's because I did a good job for him 3 years ago, and he wants his mother taken care of. So I just try and do the best job for these clients, and it will slowly grow. Patience is important. You've got to be very patient. And again, another skill that I learned playing golf for years. Because 99% of the time you're going to tee it up and only one guy wins, the other 119 guys lose, is the true story.
Oof, ain't that the truth? And what's the secret sauce for you on not falling down the rabbit hole of comparing yourself to others? And the reason I say that is, you got the Lambo, I got the Ferrari, you got all the cars, you got all this shit. I know you don't like to talk about it, but it's important for those listening in. Like, you're a very humble guy. Even to get you to do this, I had to pull off my right pinky and my other thumb, but I think that's a good thing, right? So it's kind of like,
yep, it's tricky. We're in an industry where you kind of have to brag a little bit. So I never decry anyone of bragging about sales and doing their thing, because business can flourish from letting the world know what you've done. Hey, I'm successful. I get these deals done. You got to come use me. So sometimes it's a very delicate balance between bragging and being humble at the same time. Back to golf. I was in competition with myself in the golf course. If I played the best I could, I may win the tournament, but somebody else may play better. If you look at scoreboards in golf, you will lose. You will never win because you'll tighten up, you'll tense up, realizing, hey, I'm 3 shots back. I've got to perform. But if you stay focused on your job and focus on yourself more than anything, the results will come. I think if you get caught up in the minutiae of Instagram and what everybody else is doing and their results, because a lot of it, unfortunately, is not as 100% true as people claim. Stay focused on your goals, stay true to your beliefs and how you want your business to be, and keep your head down, and it will probably turn out pretty good.
100% right about that. I mean, it's all exaggerated. And the irony is, but I remember going into rooms with guys and gals and feeling really less than, right? I thought, oh man, I'm the poorest person in this room. I don't have the resources. I don't have the knowledge. And then you come to find out years later, you were way ahead of them and you didn't even know it. You never know where you stand, right? It's get in the right room. Get in the room where you're the minnow, not the whale, right? Get in the room where you're always learning as opposed to always being the teacher. And I think that's a big one too. And I think you're really good at finding ways steadily to be in those right rooms and then behind the scenes, reaching out and saying, hey, we should spend time together. That's a very cool, interesting trait.
A little shout out to a lot of the people in the early days. I was fortunate enough, even though I joined Alan, I was fortunate enough to be in a small office with the Sotheby's over at DC Ranch, and I had Monica Munson, Lisa Westcott. And then over the past recent years, I've befriended a lot of the top agents. You just constantly learn something from them. There's always a tip or a trick or something from all these top agents. So I've been very blessed to have these kind of guys as friends and females out there I've learned from over the last 7 or 8 years.
So if you had to end with a quote, maybe something that you live your life by or something that really resonates with you, what do you think it would be?
It's a little bit cheesy, and I don't know where I got it as a kid, but it was more from I go back to golf for everyone because I needed to get in a mindset where it made me perform, and it was respect everyone but fear no one. I think you have that type of mentality where you do have to respect your colleagues and people around you, but also don't fear them. Go out there, work hard, and try and win. You'll get good results. So that's kind of a simple little cheesy respect everyone and fear no one.
Is there a summary or one takeaway that you'd like to leave the audience with? Where if you had to summarize, here's a question I always ask. I think it really ties in. You don't have kids yet, obviously, that I know. But let's say you have a little boy or a little girl here in the next couple of years, and you had to give them one piece of advice, one thing that you've learned on 39 years on Earth. That's one thing that they could take away. What do you think it would be? Would be like, this is my crowning moment.
I mean, it's pretty simple, and I think we've all heard it a million times, is work smart, not necessarily hard. I think there's a lot of people that try and work extremely hard and do work extremely hard, and you can be successful working extremely hard. But if you work smart and you analyze what's around you a little better, you probably could get better results quicker, more bigger results. So I'm always trying to find a more efficient way to work and clean up. So I'm back to golf. I was always just trying to get 1% better. One less shot per tournament. You're shooting 289 shots a tournament. If I get it to 288, I make the cut and I make money. So it's the same with real estate. Just try and perfect something 1% better every day. And it is a marathon. As you know, real estate is not a sprint. Be patient and just keep trying to get 1% better every day.
I heard that from a billionaire, actually. If acquaintance of mine, David Steinberg, said that. He was on stage and he said, our goal as a publicly traded company is to get 1% better every single day. If we get 1% better, that's 365% a year. You're better than majority of companies in the world. And the biggest problem people get lost in translation is they think they need to make these unbelievable strides, but in reality, it's the small little things in our lives that hold us back, right? It's the thought process of not being able to move forward that hold us back, right? Not working out, not doing the things we're supposed to be doing, not meeting the people we're supposed to be meeting, not being in those circles. Well, I really appreciate your time, Blake. If people have questions and they want to follow you or get to know you better, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
On Instagram, pretty straightforward. It's St. John International. On there, you can just DM me any questions. I'm happy to help. I do enjoy sharing. I think that's important to give back and your opinion on what you think and how you got there. So I'm happy to give any advice I can.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. Thanks for showing me one of these few interviews that you do. And I want to check out your new place too. We got to go up there. You got to teach me how to play golf better.
We can do that.
All right, man. Thanks for taking the time. Take care.
See you soon. Thanks, guys.